Gentlemen, could you have them turn your mics up a bit?
Turn the mics up a little bit.
You're working on it up there.
Check, 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 check. I hear it.
Can you hear it now?
Yeah.
Better? We're going to say a little bit about Winchester, particularly focus on education, and then $20,000 a student per student for education in the city, which I think is astronomical, but there's a lot of things that we have to address, just like the SRO stuff.
And if I can just interject there too, because that is one of the things, you know, you mentioned down there, hey, our kids are kids, you know, public school, private school, homeschool, you know, parents need to have the opportunity to make that choice. But I will say, one of the things I fought for is, you know, our taxpayers' dollars, and I have to shout out to Frederick County as well, because again, we have worked with them. He mentioned about at the last one, the expense of the security system and all of that. I've applied for a grant, and you know, when we apply for certain grants through the county, we receive those monies. So there are ways. I think a lot of people don't really know that, and I'm a big advocate, obviously, for parental choice, and would love to see the same thing that Virginia has on that. I really didn't mean to jump in there.
Oh, you're doing
well. I
well.
just think that's so important, and I want people to know that. We're not at odds. I am so grateful and thankful for my relationship with the county, and they work with us. We have the Raptor system because of a safety grant that I applied for and that I got with your taxpayers' dollars. We have $7,000 to $8,000 a year that they give us towards professional development. Now, again, it can't be in biblical true, you know, things or anything like that, but my goodness, it can be in crisis management and safety and so many things. So that relationship is really good. I just felt like I wanted to say that. Sorry, back to you.
That's quite all right. Yeah, Winchester City, as you know, is our own entity. Frederick County is separate, but in my opinion, we do our separate budgets, separate decisions, but we're all one community, whether you live in the county or Winchester, whatever. So, you know, I'm looking for questions and answers based on that. You got anything to start before?
Sure. I mean, just about myself, my wife and I, we have 4 boys, so we've been here since 2004, and all 4 of our boys, they went through Sacred Heart and then went into the city school system there. And what the mayor was talking about with having the school board versus separate being of city council, I think is incredibly important. I like to have that separation because those guys that are on school board, that is their focus. Truthfully, if you had it mixed in with city council, there's just too much stuff that's going on. So that allows them to focus really just on the kids and what's going on there in the school systems itself. I prefer it that way. So really with us, we don't get our hands dirty with saying we need to get into your curriculum. That is a school board people. Ours is just budgetary when they're bringing this to us to say, here's what we need to have. You know, we may have questions for it, but ultimately we're not getting involved in their day-to-day operations.
Yeah, it's a great point, because the restrictions in the city on, you know, planning, stormwater, et cetera, is a handful enough. You know, to add all the restrictions and guidelines that they deal with in the state and federal and education, we couldn't do it.
And most
just couldn't.
people on the school board themselves, you've got a lot of educators, people who really, they know that is what their specialty is, and that's why I'm happy that they're doing what they're doing. Let us do our side, and then we come together when we need to merge up. So we have meetings with them throughout the year, find out what's going on, but the day-to-day operation, that's on school board. We don't need to be involved in that.
Now, they come to us with a request, and we typically ask, where is it being spent, whatever. We really like it when they spend it on the educators. The people, in my opinion, are on the front lines working with the kids. But anyhow, that is where we are on the budget. Now, you got anything you want to, questions you want to ask, or anybody got a question?
As far as the budget goes, just so you got.
For the city, we just finished up our budgets, which is great, because I just walked in on that, and really when your first term on this thing, it's already going at that point. There's minimal impact that you can really have. So now, once this thing finished up, I said, all right, now it's budget for next year is really where I get to have much more impact with that. I'm glad we're done with it, because it does take a lot of time, and it's a lot of kind of, you know, that's where you have some of the kind of the political part that comes out in it, which I dislike. Ultimately, what we want to make sure is that the city is taking in the right amount of money and just enough to do the services that we need to do, but I don't want any extra money taken from there. I always say that we're fiduciaries of the residents that are there, so we have to make smart decisions, and it's not always just about being super tight with money. There are times when you've got to watch the money, but we also have to look ahead for planning, because if we're not spending the money wisely, if we kick the can down the road, then all of a sudden you pay way more on these things. So small incremental things. Nobody likes taxes, but understanding where it goes for, I hate having to kind of get behind it and say, you know, this is what it is, but for living in the community that we're in and the city and the services that we provide, I think it's actually a pretty good deal that we have going right now. So we want to watch the money, give exactly what's needed, but not go over those numbers.
Good point. I was campaigning last year. I'm not, I don't want to say forceful at the people that came to the door. I just ask them, I give them a handout, say, take a look at it. I ask you 2 things that you think are doing well in the city and 2 things that you think need to improve. One of the most consistent thing I got, you remember, we're 9.2 square miles locked. That's our land. That's all. We can't expand whatever without annexation, which that means the county and the cities would have to approve it. But anyhow, so.
And our county supervisor, Josh Ludwig, just walked in.
Hey,
so
Josh, how you doing?
Come up here with you guys shortly too, so good.
So anyhow, when I asked them what can we approve or what what their issues were, the number one thing I heard, which kind of surprised me, but it encompasses a lot of things. We lost a small town charm in Winchester. They were talking about traffic. It used to be 5 or 6 minutes across town. Now it's 20 minutes to get across town. You know, public safety issues, crowds, whatever. I thought it was a great point. So then I say, okay, what do you think we can do about it? Well, we can build up. Okay, if you build up, let's say you add 15% more on the population. Well, now our firefighter trucks can only go up 4 floors, so you go up 6 floors. We got to spend millions of dollars. I think it's $3 million for a hook and ladder now, and it's about 5 years to get it. So if you go up 6 floors, we have to buy all new equipment for our fire and rescue. But you added 15% on the population, our streets didn't get any wider. Our sidewalks are the same, so it's going to get even more crowded. So that's a complex, you know, issue that we have in the city.
Well, I'll jump in on
Yeah,
that.
go.
When I started coming on to council, I was on planning commission. So, and I really love planning commission. A lot of people probably think it's really boring, but looking at these things, it is, you know, you have the people who go, all right, no growth. And unfortunately, that's not realistic to happen around here. I mean, I get where somebody would say that, but that's not where we are. And we're not forcing growth, but it is managed, smart growth is the way that this is. So we've got stuff we're doing in the city with the neighborhood design district. So you'll see these NDDs. You're planning ahead. So instead of us having developers come to us and saying, all right, we want to do a conditional usage on this, we're already kind of taking that away to say, these are the areas we want to grow. Ward Plaza is a great one to talk about that's over there. Everybody knows that. It has been run down. It's doing nothing. It has not done anything for 30 years. That is a prime piece of land. It's great, and it needs to have, what's that? It needs redevelopment. I mean, and so we need to have that. So we start picking certain areas of where is the growth going to be, and by zoning it and putting the designations in these places, we're then controlling what's going on in there instead of having to make those adjustments. You know, there's green space, there's all kinds of things that developers will come to you. And I don't think developers are bad. They're trying to make money, so they're going to come to you, and they're wanting to get the best deal for them. That's fine. I don't have any problem with that. But if we're in control of these things ahead of time to say we're going to make it easy on you as a developer to come in here. However, you're going to do the type things that we're looking to do. It's smart planning to do this, because the way I always look at this is not for us. This would be for my kids and my grandchildren that I don't even have. So you're looking down the road at 30, 40, 50 years down the road. What does Winchester look like at that point? And the way I always kind of think of it is, you don't want to get trendy or really just pick something that's going to be a hot idea of the moment. I want something so in 30 or 40 years they get there and they go, okay, I see where they were going. This made sense. It worked, instead of getting there and going, wow, what were these guys doing? This just didn't make sense. So smart, managed growth is really the way that all of this has to happen. And the county has way more growth coming up than we would ever have in the city. So that they've got opportunities, and with the growth, then you have taxes that are created from this. You then have services. So it does kind of feed into a loop. So having organic growth is a good thing, because it does help keep taxes down on people that are there, but you have to keep that coming in. We don't want to live in a place where we are losing population. If you're in a city or an area like that, that is going to be a problem before long.
Yeah, it's a great point. Instead of the contractor driving this ship, we get to drive the ship and tell what we want for the future. Back on education, again, my kids went here and they did great. Well, except for
They did great.
one had a little punishment. But education to me is getting them engaged, empowered. And I saw through our kids, get them a purpose. When I went to college, our kids went to college. Every time we did a visit, all of the schools said, well, on an average, you'll change your major 3 times. I said, what? Why were they not exposed to different passions that they could really find theirs before that? And that's why I was really pushing for the Innovation Center. I don't know. Everybody heard of that Innovation Center in Winchester?
No.
Okay. Right behind John Hanley used to be a elementary school, John Kerr. It was, my wife went there. I don't want to say, she was born in 65, it'd be probably early 70s it was built. And it was an open environment elementary design, no walls. They just had barriers, sound carried over everywhere. It wasn't a good philosophy. But about, I don't know, 6 years ago, they wanted to redo that as another elementary. But we needed job skill training because we're out of the Dow J. Howard things. So I pushed for a VOTEC school, and that's what it ended up being. It's an innovation center right behind John Hanley. And they teach, he just went over that with us, but they teach anywhere from drone control, AI, EMT, EMS services.
Nursing that they have in there. It's
health services.
amazing what they have in the innovation.
And it is, for those of you that are probably similar in our age, you're thinking VOTEC type stuff, and this is not VOTEC. I mean, when it really was not a popular thing when, I was in high school. This is taking kids and giving them really good skills and letting them get hands-on work. So then they have certifications where they're coming out, and they are work ready to be able to go. So kids who aren't going to college, that's fantastic, but we're going to give you a skill so that you can go ahead and get right into the job market. I mean, we told our kids, whenever you graduate high school, you're going to do college, you're going to go into work, you're going to do military. That was just the 3 that I said. Those are the things. You're going to do one of those 3 things. you don't get to just kind of hang out. So with having the Innovation Center, and I'll say we have twins that are seniors at Hanley, so they graduate next week. One of them last year did the EMT class, so he had his EMT 1 certification already. He is interested in going into medicine, so he'll be going in the fall to college. And his twin brother, he did the firefighter last year, and he had his firefighter 1. He joined up with Shawnee Volunteer last year. He even got, I think it was Rookie or Volunteer of the Year for doing that, so that was super cool. We didn't have firefighters in our family. It was just kind of a new thing for us in thinking about this. And then that same kid, he is doing EMT, so he's going to come out with his Firefighter 1 and EMT 1, and with that Firefighter 1, he can go anywhere in the country except for Florida because they have different certifications, walk in and get a job as a firefighter right there. So it's something that he got into. He was at the IC showcase last week and doing that, and he really loved the thing. So now when he goes off in the fall, and they're going to Radford, they're going together, same school, and they're rooming together. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of a neat thing for us. He's going to study. He's thinking about fire science. He wants to do business also, but continue stuff he's taken from high school.
Is that only Winchester City School for students?
Yep, that it. Yep.
So here's my plug, because I've tried with Dow J, with all the other ones. Just like it was just modeled by our police department. No, honestly, really, if there's a way that you guys, if I could just put a plug in and a heart for our Christian schools that are in the area, Sacred Heart, even you said your kids went there, all of them. It would be awesome if we had some access to.
Yeah, Sacred Heart only goes up to 8th grade, so that's probably not going to work for them. But if you do have people that are going to be in high school age and something like that, we need more.
To do our own type things.
And regardless of where it is, we need more of them. I mean, we've got the one for the city of Winchester, but the county, they could use a few of those things. Right. It's just, that is what you want the kids coming out with. Yeah, but steer away from VOTEC because it does kind of still have those negative things. So it's really more of CTE than VOTEC on doing this. So your career and your technical education is the mindset that you want to get in because they're coming out, they've been working hands-on. They aren't just reading about things. We went yesterday and there were kids that were part of they have welding class that's there, much more in depth than that, but they had created bike racks and they're doing bike racks all over the city. So there are going to be a total of 10 of them. They did a really cool looking one that was at, we had the ribbon cutting at the library yesterday, and this one's neat looking because it looks like an open book. That's the best way I can describe it. So these are not just, a tube or something that looks like where you'd go hook your bike onto it. So they are doing these specific. There's one they had at the Innovation Center. They've got one that they're doing, there's one that has the city, the Chester Lion.
The pickleball courts are going
Pickleball court. So they've designed these things, they go ahead and they cut them out, they weld them together. They've gone through the whole process of doing this, and it was neat to have the kids show up, and they were there for the ribbon cutting yesterday to do this, and they can kind of continue that on. And this is something they were talking about. They'll get to come back when they're visiting from college or wherever, 10, 20 years. These are still going to be there at that point. So it's just neat stuff to get them involved with and to have the local thing, because we want to keep our kids here if we can.
Back to the Innovation Center. I want to point out Delegate Wiley over here. We got some grants, a lot with his help to build our Innovation Center, but they do have welding. They got, I don't know if anybody paid any HVAC lately or any plumber or any carpenter or electrician. We have all that up there, but man, the rates are high, so they can get out of there, get their certification and get a job and start making money without 6 years of tuition debt.
So my question I have for you guys is with this vocational center, I was that person that hopped and didn't really want to go to college right at 18. I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? I have a hard mind making up decisions. Anyways, so if I had something like a vocational center when I was growing up, what I think would be really beneficial for somebody, even like my daughter who's 8 and is voice, I want to go to college, just having that would be huge, the vocational, but actually putting them in to shadow, like with our police department, to shadow and ride along with the fire trucks and EMS. They do that all the time, and they love teaching, because there's a difference between going to a vocational center and really liking something than being hands-on. Right. Any hospital, anything in this area would love to take kids on and do students and stuff.
And they are placing them. So working with this, you have the career coaches that are there. I mean, this thing
But do
is
they
super.
actually get them in to see what
Oh,
the
yeah,
true
they-
life job
They get
is?
them into jobs that are all going on at this. The nursing part that's there, I'm not a nurse, I don't have any
Kind of
She's a
medical.
nurse. I am.
Well,
I
if you
have
walked,
no idea.
if you walked in there, and I was told this from a good friend of ours who's a PA, she said this was better than what I had in college. So they are actually learning on things where then they could go over to Valley Health, or they can go to somewhere, and it's not like I was working on equipment that was 30 years old and it doesn't work anymore.
You know, Air Care even flies these kids around too.
Yeah.
Like Air Care and like in Fairfax, we had Fairfax One. I don't know, like what the if we have police helicopters here that like land and stuff like that.
I don't think
but
we do.
They always would take people on just a shadow.
Yeah.
And it's the coolest thing, and it really gets them a hold of things to really want to.
I totally agree. It's being done. So they are all over this with placing things, because it's not just what you're learning, but then you've got to apply it somewhere, and getting in early to get that. Also, you may get into something and decide you don't like it, and that's fine, because if you've only invested a few months or maybe a year in it, that's way better than you put 5 or 10 years ago. I really hate what I'm doing every single day. That doesn't make sense. So the education is different now than what it was when I was in school. I'd take this class and that was what it is. It is very specialized in what these kids are doing and what they're trying to have them go to. So I'm thrilled with what's happening there.
Yeah, and they are working with employers in the city and county, and they place them in like just a shadow or a trying method. And I've seen some of the companies actually hire the students right out of high school now because of this trade.
If anybody is an employer in here, all you have to do is reach out to that. I mean, the schools want people doing this.
At the city or county, you can reach out to the CTE people and say, I have an opportunity. It doesn't have to be big business. You can be a small business owner and reach out, and it's really pretty light lifting. You go through a few things just to make sure it's right, but this is a good way to bring people in. You've got the kids, and quite possibly they turn into full-time employees, but also they turn into good contributing citizens.
I'm on the Watts board, and I'm on the Winchester Rescue Mission board, and I've always had this idea, they heat the building at night, but nobody's in there, that maybe we can go in and do some skill training for the people and get them a job. But
Yep,
anyhow.
get them in that fire bridge,
Yeah.
in that all the firefighters have to go through, because
Or
there's so
any
many
of 'em.
people that like turn around, they're like, nope, I don't want to walk in fire. It's so different.
But that's a pipe dream of mine yet.
Firefighter and paramedic, but he moved to Asheville, but he got his start up here.
But the big thing is, I know John's like this too, is you see a student find their passion, their whole world opens up. Their eyes, they bright up. And county's doing a great job now. I think their IDA.
You can ask him some questions too about the county.
The WOW is, they have it up at SU, and they have different employers there and different, entities that aren't on a job fair. They're not hiring you. They just say, this is what I do. And you keep it on your list or you take it off. And if you can minimize your quest down to maybe 3 choices when you graduate, God bless you.
Do you know Josh Ludwig? Do you all know each other?
I've only seen him once.
Congratulations,
Thanks, George.
Hey. So, I thought, let's get him up here because he can answer some kind of things around the county too.
Yeah,
if you
absolutely.
wanna share, but I don't want to cut your time off either. Let's just let you up. So go ahead, share.
Well, I'm at that age where I'm shrinking now.
No, I was putting the mic in front of you.
Let's have a triple,
I'll speak loudly since I don't have a mic. So my name is Josh Ludwig. I'm chairman of the Frederick County Board of Supervisors. You probably all know how it works. In Virginia, cities are independent of counties, so we have separate governments. We do collaborate on some things.
A lot of
We share a
MOUs, yeah.
sanitation system for the time so that he could afford to put my two sisters and my brother in. And I'm a big supporter of the schools here, the private schools. I think it's just a wonderful option for people to have. Frankly, I'm for school choice. You all pay taxes. You really ought to be able to take the money with you. I've talked to a lot of the private schools principals. Not all of them are for it, actually, and let me tell you why. If they accept government money, even if it comes through the parents, and even if there's no strings on it about what they can teach, there could be strings later. You can get addicted to the money. You can start building the gymnasium you've always wanted, or changing things about how you run by some buses, whatever you wanted to do next. Build out your school. It can be all great. Then we can get a new governor or a new president who comes in and says, no, you're only going to get the money anymore if you teach some of these things that many of you don't want to see. That's why you're here. And so you have to be really careful. I pushed when I was a supervisor and not the chair. We got 4 votes to send a letter to Attorney General Miaris when he first got elected to say, what can we do? Because we're not allowed to do vouchers. But what can we do? And to my knowledge, we never got an answer. But I wasn't the chairman, so if he sent an answer back, maybe I just never saw it.
This man right here was real involved in that process too. One of our parents.
We're allowed to make that call. The state cannot withhold funds from a private institution if they give it to other institutions within the state, such as charter schools. That's a Supreme Court decision.
Yeah, so there are some programs which the private schools can apply for, but we have not yet been told that we could send. And you know what, in my opinion, even if the state and the federal government said we don't want our money to go to religious schools, the public schools cost twice as much as the schools here. We're spending almost $20,000 a student to send people to public school. You could go to any private school in the county for half of that. Guess what? The county pays for about half of that public school cost. So even if you could only carry a voucher from the locality, I have said this to Delegate Wiley and to others, if we could get a bill to say, okay, you guys don't want to send state funds to private schools, just let the localities do it, you all could take your local tax dollars and you could afford to go to any private school. I think it'd be a wonderful option for people to have. So I could tell you about, I don't want to get in this private, too far down that rabbit hole about the things that I love about private school, that public school frustrates me on. I just don't want to make it that kind of talk, but you all know some of the things that go on. I had kids go to Armo, Evendale, Admiral Byrd, Sharando, and Millbrook. 2 graduated Millbrook, and then to 3 private schools in the county as well. And so I have firsthand experience, and I so wish that I'd introduced my oldest kids to private school and made them try it out, which I didn't do because I didn't have that background myself as a student. But anyway, that's some of the education. I'm sure we could talk more on that. You see, I made some notes for myself. You all might be wanting to know about taxes, roads, and our comprehensive plan coming up. So taxes, I want to keep them as low as humanly possible. That's my background. I believe in small government and low taxes. If you want more services, we'll do the best we can, but if you want very high services and high taxes, then don't move here from Loudoun County. You know what I mean? Stay where, or New York City, stay where they have some of those things. I love the rural environment. I want to keep it. At our last meeting, I'm told this fight went on twice when I was on the board, and at least twice before I got on the board, to allow some citizens to raise chickens. It's always a big battle, a lot of yelling. We finally passed it at our last meeting. So it's not everywhere, and there are certain rules applied. We got rid of the permits even. So you have a right to raise just 6 chickens, but in many of the parts of the county, I mean, we're a rural county, and we should establish that and make sure we stay. We were the most restrictive. All the counties around us in the valley allowed it. We just didn't accept on RA land, except if you're a farmer. And why should we be the most urbanized, most regulations? I hear from businesses all the time. I opened a branch in your county. I'll never open another one because it was way too painful. I can go across the creek into Shenandoah County and open it a lot easier. I'm trying to find out now that I'm chairman why they perception and see if we can streamline things. We want to be positive for business as long as they're not going to damage the people around their neighbors. So that's one of the projects. Roads, the county for over a decade had never invested any money in roads. Now we are. When I got on as a supervisor, we got enough votes to do that. It was a fight, but now the supervisors who were against it see how it's working, they're all for it. I think they're all unanimous that it was a good idea. Now, so we've been doing it for 2-3 years, putting millions of dollars in roads. You don't see a ton solved yet. Let me tell you why. If we build a road ourselves, then we can go get something done quickly. If we apply to Richmond what they call smart scale, it takes longer. It takes some years. We've got to get approved. But they more than match. They put in like 4-to-1 funds. So $1 million of our tax money will build $5 million of roads or more and that's something the county's been missing. As we grew, that's why we got behind. We were not competing for state funds on roads for many, many years. Now we are. So you're going to see the worst intersection with 81 have work soon. That's Route 11 North. You know how bad that can get. Redbud Road's going to be realigned. There's going to be a new kind of intersection with the highway. We got bridge work coming on. You know that the 313 bridge is going to be rebuilt. That's 50 Highway 17 going into the city there. It's not going to have a lot more lanes of capacity. However, the city on the inside is doing a great thing. They're expanding the roads when you come off the bridge. And you won't be able to make that first left turn into the mall anymore. So traffic won't jam up on that bridge so much. It'll get across. And we're doing some work on the eastbound side as well to try and magnify the effect of what VDOT's doing. So we got projects I can tell you about if you want to talk to me after about specific things that frustrate you with roads. I can tell you whether it's on our chart or not. At our transportation meeting on Monday, I looked at, it's a time of year where we make these applications. So we're considering what we want to apply for with Smart Scale again. And it's all the way from, highway intersections down to secondary roads. But you know what's missing? We have a lot of roads in this county that are dirt or gravel. And there's no real program for those roads, except there's a little bit of money every year to pave some of them. But other than that, I've had people call me all the time and say, these roads are terrible. We have people getting their cars damaged. Why doesn't the state, I'm not saying the state's doing a bad job. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing on some of these roads. So I brought it up and I said, we need to start looking at that. So I called a developer, a businessman who lives and works far out in the corner of the county today, and I started accepting offers. I know my back's going to get beaten up. It's going to hit every pothole just to prove something to me. But I said, I'll ride with you, and you show me these roads that I might not be familiar with that are a mess. And I'm going to ask the other supervisors to do the same thing, and let's make a list of what needs to be done. Now, Smart Scale won't multiply our dollars. That would have to be roads that we would have to fix on our own taxpayer dime. But maybe we can get in with VDOT and with the Transportation Board, with delegates like Wiley and Oates and our senator. Once we have our case built, maybe we can go and point out some things that are hazards that really need to be fixed. So we're doing a lot on roads. You're going to see that soon. The pipeline has started. We're also advocating, the state wanted to widen 81. They've had a lot of plans that haven't passed. They're widening it in bits and pieces. But oddly enough, even though West Virginia is finishing, their 3 lanes divided, they're not starting at the northern end. The plan is to start at the southern end and leave us out for a while. Well, we did talk to the delegates and the Commonwealth Transportation Board, and now there will be some widening. We said you shouldn't have skipped us. This is a very busy part. There's a lot of trucks. One logistics park is about to open. There's going to be even more trucks. We need 81 widened, and we've got that. That's in the pipeline now, too. Not all the way from the West Virginia border, but at least it's going to get started. So what else did I say? Roads and taxes and, well, comprehensive plan. I mean, there's so many other things I could talk about, but I want to be quick and get you done on your slide in time. So the state requires every county to have a comprehensive plan. And what that is, it says where we envision the county down the road in land use. Where the business is going to go, are there more mining going to come? What new roads do we enter? Where is the housing going to go? All of that kind of thing. The county's had one about 5 years ago. We have to update it every 5 years. And 4 years ago, they didn't update, but it was very minor. They really didn't put a lot of effort into it. There was a change in the county administrator and the board and the planning department. There was was a lot going on apparently. So they didn't do too much with it, nor did it really get advertised to the public much. Because you come here and you buy a house. I talked to a lady who came here, she was so passionate, she said, it was my dream to live in the valley. I bought this house, across the street they got cows, and over here they got that, and I just wanted my dream house. And I bought it, and I moved in, and I got cited for having chickens. Because although they were RA, her right across the street was not, and she couldn't have it. People come here, they don't know that the land's already been bought by Carmoose, and it's destined to be a mine, and they buy a house. I didn't know. When I move, I don't look at comprehensive plans. You know, I just trust my real estate agent when I need to a new place. Well, now that I've been doing this, I've learned you might want to look. You know, I had a beautiful hill with deer right next to where I'm living now. They blasted the top off it, and it's housing. On one side, there's still a farm. On one side of our development. That's not anybody's fault. They had the right to build it. I just didn't know it when it came in. So the comprehensive plan is important. For you all to know what's going to happen in your neighborhood, and for you to vote, for you to come and tell us, gee, I didn't realize that part of the county would be the next step to be urbanized, or to have a bunch of housing developments put in. I want to be the opposite of the last board. I want to hear from everybody. Does it mean a lot of late nights and people calling me mad? Yes. But I don't want a meeting where two people come and leave and I get out of there in 15 minutes. I really want people to know what's coming. And tell us what you want. You know, there are some people who want it to grow more jobs. We want the best house. Some people want it to stay rural and farming forever. The truth is that it's a free country and a free market. As was just said, we can't control the fact that the city and the county are going to grow some, but we need to do a much better job of planning for it and letting the public have a voice and know. Because if we put something in the comprehensive plan that says, we're determined to keep this area, let's say rural and farming, and we know there's a lot of support for that particular area to stay rural and farming, then we shouldn't approve, we should stick to that. Because the comprehensive plan should not just be a document that we checked a box to the state. It'd be something we've all signed up for. And we update it every 5 years, so things can always change. But it should be, in a way, it should be a real plan that we really commit to and a promise to the public. So I could talk about a bunch of things. I think you heard from the sheriff earlier. They caught that arsonist that was running around setting fires in my neighborhood. You know, there was an arsonist,
Up here.
and he set 8, 10 homes on fire, but some of them burned out on their own. He wasn't very good at it.
Well, you got 8 or 10 of them now. You still
Yeah,
must have been
well,
somewhat good.
the first night, the fire department showed up and they put out the house. Well, it was a truck first, a truck that was set on fire. 3 hours later, they get another call in the same neighborhood. It's the back of the house. So after that, they said something must be going on. So they went up and down the street in the middle of the night, and they found, I think, 4 more homes that had fire damage, but it had burned out on its own. Then there were 3 or 4 nights where that went on. I mean, we're growing. I think mostly it's in a good way, but when we become bigger, some bad things come here too. And it took a while, but they caught the guy. My hope is there haven't been anything since. So my hope is he really was acting alone and it was a one-off thing. But, you know, we need good policing. I won't comment on that. You've heard from the sheriff, and you might have heard from the city has a police chief and a sheriff's department. We need good fire and rescue. That's a huge change. Our system in the county was built by volunteers, by people who volunteered their time. They raise money. You know, you still see those pancake breakfasts and all those other things going on. But people don't volunteer much anymore. So the county, and probably the city too, has been having to take this over and make it part of their budget. We're having a big expansion. We're building a new fire station, and we've committed, if we can afford it, to hire 8 firefighters a year for like 5 years, till we have 40 more. So we can up our services across the county. But some of it is not upping services. Some of it is replacing the people who no longer volunteer.
So let's just talk about volunteers when it comes with that. At that point in time when everybody volunteered, this was a place that was not like Fairfax County. Okay, the rates and personal property taxes alone on cars and houses in Winchester City are more than Fairfax County and are more than Loudoun County. So people no longer can volunteer because they can no longer afford to live in this area. So those volunteer hours are now having to be doing second jobs just to be able to live in this community.
Yeah,
I
so-
personally myself, I'm a single mother. I have an 8-year-old, okay? I'm a nurse, okay? I mean, it's just as expensive here to rent, and now, like, personal property values, like, and the houses here are just compatible with Fairfax County. So what's Winchester's plan to help with that, and what are we doing with the 14.5% food tax that I pay for? Like, what are we doing with all those things?
We have a shortage, there's a whole bunch of things that are happening right now. First thing, and this is super unpopular, we are a suburb of DC at this point.
Oh, exactly, right?
Like it or not, that's what we are. So there's different growth that we have, and the county's gonna have approaches to it, so I'll speak to the city itself. Being in that we are going to have this growth, you have all kinds of people that have moved here, I mean, this change in work and everything else. People were coming out
Here because it's a nice place. They want to be here, they enjoy it, and it's cheaper than Northern Virginia, but that doesn't mean it's cheap by any means. I moved from Alexandria when we lived there in 2000, and we came out here. So we have a shortage of houses nationwide, not just here. So right now you've got a whole bunch of really compaction that's happening. We are missing houses that are at the affordable level of housing. We are missing houses which are the $2 million houses.
We have room to build more and destroy all the rural. And to
Sure.
take away from all the corporations. We had that room, right?
Yeah.
And the people that lived out here because they could afford it, now their housing rates are going up through the roof. They can't pay personal property. So my thing is if we're a suburb of DC, do we get all the same benefits that DC gets?
Which
We
ones?
need to.
Yeah.
Then you can't consider us a suburb. And there has to be a way in between.
Yeah, well, and when you start getting into this, then you start talking about personal property rights too, because I'll give you a really good example. I own a hydroponic farm. I'm a farmer, and then, so I'm in all of these farm type things. Well, there was a farm that's over in Frederick County, real close to Clark County. People started a real stink over this. It was, all right, they're gonna develop this farm that's right here. We wanna start a petition to not develop the farm. And my response was, you know, for everybody who signed the petition against this, did you shop with this farm before? Because if you didn't, I'm not gonna tell you you can't talk, but everybody likes to have farmland. We love farmland, but generally, farmers are standing on their retirement. They don't have a 401k or something else. So when this comes and they've got, maybe there's a child that's not taking it over because they realize that, you know what, this is some back-breaking work that I'm making small money on. Do I sell the land that I have to a developer who's going to pay me money? Because anybody in here has if you want to go buy farmland from somebody, you're welcome to do it. And then you can put it in a conservation easement. So I can't bash the farmer who's going to sell that because they want to take care of their family or live the rest of their life. So where do we do that? Do we tell them they can't sell their land?
Or how come they can't afford it anymore? And they've lived there all their life.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just, like, what are we doing to keep the people that came here and that have lived here for a long time? Like,
So it's a double-edged sword.
I know.
If you don't build more houses, you stay rural, right? If you don't build more houses, and it's an attractive place to live, your assessment goes through the roof because there's very few houses to buy. We lost a home in a flood in this county, couldn't even stay in the same school district. There wasn't even anything to rent that would take 6 people and a cat and a dog. I mean, there's housing shortage, but if you build more homes, you gotta build more schools, and you know, there's more. So it's a tough thing to wrestle with. Since I've been on our board, so our assessments, as you know, in the county have been going up more than 20% every 2 years. We do an assessment every 2 years, and that means, because it compounds, it's about 50% more in your value and your taxes every 4 years, each 2 cycles. So the cycle before this last one, we managed to lower the tax rate and still survive as a county government to completely offset the 20-some% increase. So we lowered our tax rate down to 51 cents per, you know, $1,000 in assessed value. This last time we weren't quite able to do that again because it was another 20-some% increase, but we did lower it again. So we're one of the lower counties on houses, on taxes on land. For cars, we're one of the highest. So that's my next target. I want to lower our personal property tax on your vehicles so that we're one of the lower ones there. And it just takes work. So how do we do that and provide the services? In our case, one of the answers to attract good businesses. And we've got Clausen Chocolates just announced recently. They're like $100,000 jobs that are coming to the county, a lot of them, and a lot of tax money. And we want to get good businesses, well-paying. That's great for job opportunities for your kids or maybe for you, but it also builds the tax base so that we don't have to, so that we can continue to lower the personal taxes on people and get that money from somewhere else.
I know we're running late, so
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I want to say,
if each of you would
yeah.
just kind of say one last thing, and then we'll take a quick break, and then you can ask them their individual questions,
I'm
if
done,
that's
so
okay.
chase me.
Yeah, okay. But I'm just gonna say before I turn them loose, this is why we need to continue to pray for them, and thank you, thank you. My eyes are really open. We're handling just our own little one thing. You're handling the whole city. You're handling the whole county. Thank you, and pray for them. So go ahead and finish things up, and then we'll take a quick break, and you can ask some questions, and then we've got Delegate Bill Wiley and Philip Scott.
My last thing is, I'm back to the passion of when a child finds their path. Our 16-year-old, our oldest, when she turned 16, she came home looking sad, and I said, and her friends, I said, what's wrong? Well, everybody's asking me what I'm going to do when I graduate. Well, they had no idea, but they're getting hounded by this. And the counselors at our high school do a great job, but they are taking a whole class all the way from 9th grade to 12th grade, and they're just overworked. So they don't really get to do any career counseling. But when these youth are exposed to all the different options and they can narrow it down when they graduate, the whole world gets a whole much brighter for them. And like our one son, he always wanted to be an astronaut, but he got a degree in acting, and he was really good at it. I don't know why. And then he got a degree in computer science and math, and he's really good at it. Well, now he's going to be down in Pensacola. He's going to be a fighter pilot for the Navy and then come out as an astronaut. But anyhow, passion, if you can find the path early with the youth, I think the whole world opens up to them, and that's the best thing one of the best things we can do as a city, as government.
I was just going to say, it is very tough because then you're balancing this growth versus slowing growth. It is tough because there are people on both sides of this thing, and really that's what we have to take in, figure out what is going to be the absolute best for the majority of people that are here. I can't guarantee it's going to be the best for every single person every time. But on the council that we have very reasonable people that are on there. We are not a dysfunctional group that can't do anything, so we do get along and do these things. And we're different in so many ways in the county. We have adaptive reuse, which we're doing right now. If you guys will get into it real quick with the zero pack thing that's happening right now, that sat there just doing nothing forever, and now it's actually being turned to affordable housing, and it really is by the definition of an affordable, whether somebody wants to get into that or not, but there are a definitional way to say this is how this is. So it's going to be of your AMI. So 60% on the AMI. So that is what we are doing in the city. So we can take some of these buildings that are old, unused, or underutilized. Let's turn those into things that we need to have. But we have a severe shortage of housing, not just here, nationwide we have it. So that keeps the prices going on these things. It's not an easy fix by any means. So get into it, show up to these meetings, and listen, because the best thing we can have are informed people who are involved with what we're doing. There are a lot of people who just kind of chirp on the sideline, which everybody has that right, but get some knowledge about what's going on in these processes, because this is not something where somebody's bringing bags of money into council and we're going, oh, look at this. That's not how it works for this. We live here too. We have family that's here. We're doing the best that we can for everybody that's here.
If we don't get to all of your questions, just email us. Go on the city website and email it.
And you've got that in your packet. All right, go ahead, Josh.
Thank you so much. Say something like that, and that is, I visit a lot of churches, trying to make it a mission